Hi, it's Robbie from Inner Powered Life, and today I'm going to be continuing in the boundary series, and I'll be discussing boundaries and compromise. And for those of us who have gone through bullying and abuse situations, reconciling boundaries and compromise can be very confusing for us, primarily because most of the time we have been taught that we weren't allowed to have boundaries, or if we did establish boundaries, we somebody overrode them, often with force or with threats, and we can be left with not knowing that we do actually have the right to set boundaries and that we can engage in healthy compromise in our relationships without having to trample on our boundaries or allow them to be trampled on. And we can understand the difference between compromise and coercion. And so compromise is generally when two or more parties have a common objective, and each party might give up something they wanted or agree to something that's not their first choice for the greater good, but it's a healthy dynamic, and nobody is being actually harmed in the process. So an example of this is, say you and your partner are going out to dinner, and one of you wants a hamburger and fries at your favorite place, and the other wants seafood. And maybe the burger person doesn't like seafood. And so both parties will decide, hey, we'll go to this other restaurant that offers both options. So even though each person didn't get their first choice at their favorite restaurant, they found something that worked out for both of them. Nobody was harmed. The relationship, it was fine. Everything it was smooth. And this was not something that caused any of them to have to trample on any actual physical or moral or mental or emotional or financial or sexual boundaries. Coercion, on the other hand, is when there is one or more parties who are abusive and one or more parties who are the target, and the abuser wants the target to allow their boundaries to be trampled on or to not have any at all. And this is usually to the detriment of the target. So it can result in physical, emotional, mental, legal, financial, sexual, moral trauma or harm to the other party. Abusers love to conflate compromise with coercion. And so they will misappropriate compromise, which is actually coercion, and use this term to convince their target to go along with what they want. And so they could say things like, why can't you just compromise and do it my way? When what they're actually asking is something that is ultimately harmful to their target, and they know this, but they don't care. They want what they want. And so, as people who have gone through this kind of abuse and bullying, we can often not really be sure that our boundaries are right or fair. We can also usually operate out of fear. So we may feel like at this point, I don't really have a choice. I have to go along with what this person wants, because if I don't, I could be rejected, I could be abandoned, I could be actually physically hurt or financially hurt, I could lose my job. There could be some kind of repercussion if I don't accommodate this person, even though it either makes me very, very uncomfortable inside, or it actually poses some kind of tangible harm to me. The way we can start to gauge if our boundaries are correct and that we are being asked to engage in our own boundary trampling to help the abuser is how the demand or the request feels inside of us. So if somebody's asking you to do something and you get an immediate physical reaction or a mental or emotional reaction of, hey, this is not right, this is dangerous, this is wrong, I'm not comfortable, this is off, this is harmful to me, you are very likely dealing with coercion. This is not a case of healthy compromise, right? So healthy compromise could look like your partner, housemate, or somebody asks you to please turn the TV down because it's too loud and they're trying to sleep. That's not a coercive thing. This is normal and logical, and you're not being threatened with anything. It's not going to cause you harm to turn the TV down, right? Being asked to fudge the numbers at work, or to be dishonest about something, or engage in a physical activity that could cause injury, or intimate activities that you're not comfortable with, or something else that you feel is harmful or compromising to you, and you do it because you're afraid not to, that is coercion. Narcissistic abusers always use coercion of some sort to get what they want. It could be overt physical threat, it could be some other kind of threat, it could be whining or crying or some kind of emotional manipulation, using your words against you, saying that you're unreasonable because you won't accommodate them. There's all kinds of ways that they can manipulate you. And if you've had a lifetime of dealing with this, or this same kind of dynamic with the same person, or in the same kinds of situations, it can wear you down to the point where you may feel it's just safer or easier to go ahead and go along with whatever it is that they want, even at risk to yourself. When you confronted with these, start feeling and recognizing in yourself the warning signals that your body and your internal dialogue are giving you. Listen to those and honor those. You have a right to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and legally, and financially. Doing so is not going to harm the other person if you're not bringing threat or force against them to harm them. You standing up for yourself is not going to hurt them, okay? So do not allow yourself, to the best of your ability, to be manipulated by this kind of language or by their threats. Now, if you are in a situation where you are in physical danger, absolutely leave. You don't have to reason with them, remove yourself. In other situations, you can start in a small way, even if you're afraid, by expressing that you are uncomfortable with something, or I'm sorry, I don't feel this is right, or this is actually illegal, or no, this hurts me, no, this is dangerous, or no, this harms another person. And stand in your right to be able to do that. You can do this. A lot of times, if you have fear of doing that, it's because there are core wounds of rejection and abandonment, core wounds of actually being punished because you may have been physically punished or harmed in some way in the past for maintaining your boundaries. There could be all other kinds of fears and wounds that go into this, so that you feel that you do not have the power, your internal authority, or that you are not worthy of having boundaries, or the other person is somehow better than you are, that you owe them making harmful concessions because of their position relative to you. A good way to be able to start standing in your power and doing this is taking a nervous system break from the situation if possible. So if you can step away and wait to respond to the email, or remove yourself from the room, give yourself a mental break and time to actually listen to what's happening and think, you are much better in a place to come back and stand in your power and say, I'm not going to agree with this. This is not compromise. This is a harmful situation to me. If you can't physically remove yourself from it, just taking a chance just for a minute to be able to breathe and kind of relax and let your nervous system come down a notch, so that you're not in very high key panic. That will also be very helpful for you to get a breath and be able to stop and think, okay, is this something that I want to do? Is this a compromise situation where it might not be my first choice, but it's not harmful or wrong? Or is this a coercive thing where I'm being threatened? Taking a minute to disengage the best you can will give you a little bit of clarity that you can act in. If you come to the point where you know this is not something that you want to do, start taking this first steps in any way that you can to draw boundaries and say that you're not going to do this. If you need some extra support in working through the core wounds that you have of rejection or abandonment or fear of punishment or feeling unworthy, I'm here to support you on your journey. Healing our core wounds and processing out the trauma is essential for us to take our power back from abusers. Because when we have removed the mind body loop of something happens and we feel these things, and when we react, it's easier for us to rewire our mind so that we do think correctly and we are able to stand our power and speak our truth and set boundaries and start moving forward where we want to be, to have healthy relationships of all sorts, and be able to move forward in the goals that we have for ourselves. It starts with our self-concept and with being able to regulate our nervous systems so that we're not operating from panic or shutdown or pandering. If you would like to work with me, I can be reached at robbiegean@innerpoweredlife.com. If you are finding these discussions helpful, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Liking and subscribing lets YouTube know that this is valuable, and it will enable me to get these messages out to others in our community who may feel unsupported and isolated and lonely and afraid, and who are looking for tools to start taking their power back and having healthy dynamics. I'll be back with you soon to move on with this topic and address boundaries and guilt. Until I see you again, take care. Remember that you are valuable, that you have a right to take your power back, and I'll see you soon.